So I kind of did a thing and I joined the dark side. Hey everybody! So if you couldn't already tell, I went from Alice to Belle real quick. I decided that my roots could no longer deal anymore and I couldn't really deal anymore, so I decided to do all one color on my hair as I am going back to Disney, and in compliance with the Disney look, you can't have like a big streak of roots showing. So I decided to give my hair a break of 23 years of bleaching it.
Okay, that's an exaggeration.
Probably like 15 years of bleaching it. And I decided to do like a nice soft ashy brown, so here we are. And on the topic of hair and Disney look and all of that jazz, why not do a video on Disney look? Because I'm bored and I seem to see a lot of questions on the Disney look, so here we are. I find that the Disney look is always talked about in the Facebook groups I'm in, and people who haven't done the program before are constantly asking questions as to whether or not certain things are okay. And like, I totally get it. When I was going into the program for the first time, I was kind of panicking because you just don't really know what to expect. Disney sends you an email with like a Disney look guideline, but you still kind of don't know what to expect because it's so broad. So I decided to make a video and talk about my experiences with the Disney look based on the location I worked at, because I worked at a location that was really strict on the Disney look, so I figured I would have some pretty good examples for everyone. When I first arrived in the cultural exchange program, there were a few days before we actually started on location where we did a lot of like paperwork meetings. And one of those meetings we received our location paperwork where we found out where we were working. And at that meeting, I believe we had like a Disney look check or something like that. I can't fully remember because it was 2 years ago, but there was someone there who kind of gave you like the up and down and the okay to make sure that you were complying with the Disney look. So we didn't have to dress in accordance to the Disney look that day, but they just made sure that like your hair was okay, like the color of it. That was basically it, I guess. They were just making sure your hair color was okay. I find that they're pretty big on the whole uniform idea with hair. They don't like to see a lot of funky colors, and they're very traditional in that aspect. So they just make sure that you don't have any like rainbow colors in your hair, and if you have highlights, that they aren't too streaky. But I also remember going to a store where one cast member who was working behind the counter had like purple streaks in her hair, and I was just like, weird. So that's kind of why I'm here, to talk about my experience and why location really does matter, and to always, always, always touch base with your manager once you start working. So I'll start off with hair and then I'll work my way down. At my location, we had to make sure that our hair was always either done up or like not in a messy bun, if that makes sense. So there wasn't, like, I can't recall a day that anybody came to work with a messy bun, ever. Like, I don't think that was allowed at my location. You weren't allowed to just, like, wake up and throw your hair up in a messy bun. So me and my roommate decided to become very good at the whole sock bun thing, because it's kind of like a messy bun, but more put together. So on days that we didn't really want to do much, we decided to do the whole sock bun thing, and a lot of our co-cast members, co-workers, whatever you want to call it, would braid their hair on days we were feeling a little bit lazier. We were never really allowed to do the messy bun kind of thing. We either had to have our hair done up or styled, just something like that. As for makeup, I'm pretty sure we always had to have a little bit of makeup on. We, again, weren't allowed to look like we'd just woken up. We worked at a pretty fancy resort, as I mentioned before, a yacht and beach club. So our managers had the mentality that we had to look the way our resort was presented, which totally makes sense because, again, depending on the location you work at, you want to present yourself the way that the overall environment is. So we wanted to present ourselves in a very classy manner. We weren't allowed to do the whole winged eyeliner thing. I know a lot of locations weren't allowed to do winged eyeliner, but I was allowed to do a little bit of eyeliner, just not winged. Mascara was okay, like the whole blush, all that jazz. Eyeshadow was okay as long as it was neutral. Lipstick was okay as long as it was neutral. I did my eyebrows, pretty much anything as long as it was neutral. I didn't do fake eyelashes. Like what I'm wearing right now, I think is a little too much. Maybe a little less eyelash. As for how you dress, you wear a costume, so that's not something you have to worry about. Jewelry, I don't remember the whole necklace thing because I never wore a necklace. So I'm not sure how that worked, but I wear 2 rings on my fingers. Also, I apologize if you see like dirty fingernails. I'm kind of silly and I didn't wear gloves when I dyed my hair, so
Gross.
But anyways, I wear 2 rings and they're not very flashy. They don't really have jewels in them. 1 ring on each finger that isn't large and doesn't have like a big stone is acceptable on Disney terms, and wedding sets are acceptable as well. So I was allowed to keep my rings on. Bracelets I don't think you can wear, but watches are okay as long as they're either neutral colored or match your costume. And I think they have to be pretty thin, maybe like an inch wide or less, something like that. But yeah, I mean, that's all I can fully think of in terms of like my location and like overall. I know for my roommates, they didn't really have like a huge strict like policy because a couple of them were outside, so they always had their hair up. A couple of them were in food and beverage, so they always had their hair up. So they didn't have like as much of a guideline to follow as my location did. So I think a lot of it is very location based. One thing I do want to mention though is Disney has something I don't know the official name for it, but I'm gonna call them Disney look representatives, and they'll go into your location sometimes with clipboards while you're working. They usually go in without warning, like no one knows when they'll show up, and they'll kind of like look at every cast member in the location to make sure that everyone is complying with the Disney look. And if something is off about like your hair, makeup, anything like that, they'll put it down as an infraction, and it could go on your record as a point or half a point, depending on how big of an infraction that is. So it's definitely something to keep in mind. I know I say that everything depends on location, but I'm not sure how these Disney look representatives take that into account. So it's something to keep in mind when you are deciding on how to color your hair and how to do your makeup for work and stuff like that. So hopefully that video was a little informative. I didn't want to do anything too long that dragged on too much. I will include a link in the description box of the Disney look guidelines that you can find on the Disney website, just in case you want to have a little look at it yourself, and of course for any males out there, because obviously, I can't really say much on that side of things. So of course, this is all from my experience. Remember, everyone's experience is different. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to include them in the comments below because I'd be more than happy to answer them. And I will be doing a video in the near future on what's appropriate to wear to traditions and stuff, so don't worry about that. I just wanted to do like a little outline of my experience with the Disney look. So hopefully that does help any of you out there that are new to it and need a little bit of questions answered. Stay tuned and don't forget to subscribe.